What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday. This is your brand buddy, Patrick Sesko, and this is Brand Marks the Spot. So welcome to another episode. And this is basically a show where we talk about all things branding and design for online entrepreneurs and how to get all those things in order so you can have a greater impact in your business and hopefully make more sales as you move forward in your business. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the 3 branding mistakes that online entrepreneurs make when they're starting out or when they're doing their branding and what to do about it instead. So, when you're an online entrepreneur and you're starting, you've got so many different things going on and you have so many hats you have to wear in your business that you're spread quite thin. So we're going to talk about those 3 mistakes and what to do about it. And this episode is brought to you by, as you can see on there, my brand roadmap. It's a free document that basically lists out all of the aspects and all of the phases of your branding. So that way, you know what to do in whatever phase you are at in your business, whether you're in the strategy phase, whether you're in the development of your branding design phase, and then just your delivery phase. So go ahead and grab that document. It's free at patricksesko.com/brand roadmap. And you'll get an email from me with the link to grab that along with some extra goodies. So be on the lookout for that. So grab that. And also, if you are here live with me, I'm just making sure that I am live here and making sure that my voice is coming through. Yep, it sounds like it is. Good. Always checking on that. There's really no way to tell unless you unless you actually see your feed on another device. I'm using a B.Live Studio, which is actually a really great streaming software. I love it. So you can do slides, you can do all sorts of things. So yeah, go ahead and grab that roadmap. So today's episode, we are talking about the 3 mistakes entrepreneurs make when it comes to their branding and what to do instead. And like I said, if you're a new online entrepreneur, you're starting out, or maybe you've even been at it for a little while, you're most likely doing a lot of the business stuff yourself, because let's face it, at this stage of business, we're strapped for cash and we're DIYing everything and we're just spread ultra thin, right? Our budgets are spread thin and everything needs to be taken care of in the business. So you've got expenses like, your accounting software, you've got software subscriptions, and all of these things alone, you've got your email, you've got your subscription to like this streaming software that I'm using right now. So all of these things, computer equipment, cameras and lights, if you're doing videos, legal expenses, marketing, advertising, the list goes on and on, right? And we're just spread thin, right? We're just like bleeding cash in the early stages. And, it's really difficult to then, after you do all of those startup costs for a business, and then you have to think about your branding, and it's really one of the last things that often new online entrepreneurs get. It's the last thing they really focus on, and it's kind of treated like an afterthought. So like, if that sounds familiar, let me know. And if anyone's here, drop a comment, say hey, where you from. It's nice to know that I'm not alone in this world. Yeah, so okay. So as a result of all of that, you end up making mistakes with your branding, and that can actually cause a diminished trust and credibility with your audience. And it's not only can it sort of damage your business reputation, it can cost you money, like in lost sales. Like if somebody comes to your site and it looks really amateurish or whatever, they're less likely to buy from you. There's no trust built. So, there's a few reasons why we make these mistakes. One could be you just don't know any better. You're new to your business, and you're doing all the things and you're learning from gurus here. You're watching YouTube videos there. You might have bought a program that you're in, or you might be in a group coaching situation, but you just don't know any better. And you're expected to know everything about running a business. And, unless you're like a business strategist yourself, and that's what you do, a lot of that stuff is kind of, we're flying by the seat of our pants and we kind of learn as we go. And it does get better over time, because I was in the same situation, and I'm still learning things. And then maybe there's just you don't really understand or believe that branding can really have that kind of impact. And when I say branding, I'm talking strategy stuff, but I'm also talking the visual stuff. Just your graphic design, your brand identity, colors, fonts, all that stuff, right? So maybe you just don't think that really can have an impact on your business. And, there are plenty of studies that show that that's not the case. It can, in fact, have a significant impact. And it's no coincidence that brands like Apple and Nike and all those, they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on their brand. And then lastly, you just end up doing nothing because your time, your attention, your money, all that spreads so thin that you end up leaving your branding up to chance, or maybe you grab a template or something like that and you do it, which, I'm not throwing shade to that. That's, you do what you do and that's fine. You learn from that. But that's what this whole episode is about. It's about understanding what these mistakes people are making and what you can do instead. So here are the top 3 mistakes that I find that most online entrepreneurs, whether they're just new or starting out, or maybe they've been at it for a little while, and what to do instead. So let me just check the comments, making sure anybody's here. Again, if you're here, say hi. I'm not going to bite you. I like to make connections with you. So the first mistake is focusing too much time on a fancy logo in the beginning. And yes, I'm a brand identity designer, and I'm telling you not to focus too much, not to put too much thought, or not thought, but not to put too much stock in a fancy logo when you're first starting your business. I get it. You want a cool logo, right? Logos are awesome. That's, people talk about those things, right? Or maybe you've tried to crowdsource your logo through one of those contest sites, which I have a whole episode about. That's, not necessarily a good thing to do. Or maybe you went through 64 rounds of edits and 200 options and you just didn't really like any of them. And after weeks of spending mental headspace and whatever little budget you might have had allocated, you're kind of left with something kind of leaves you, So if you don't have any clients yet, or you haven't really made any money in your business yet, and you're really just started, or even worse, you don't know who your audience is, what they're struggling with, then how are you going to focus? You're going to focus your precious time on the wrong thing. And that is putting so much time and effort and energy into this fancy logo, right? So, the short answer is, don't spend all that extra time on your logo in the beginning, right? Because money is tight, and don't spend your money on something that isn't going to move your business along at that stage. So, as a fellow business owner, I understand the struggle. So, I can't even tell you how many times, which I don't accept these kinds of clients anymore, but they're startups and they're just focusing. They're really hyper focused on this logo, where they want this really cool logo. They want the Nike, they want the Apple, they want the Target, right? But they don't understand that those brands have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on just brand strategy and advertising and just drilling it into your psyche over decades. And that's why we can look at the Nike logo without any text and know that it's Nike. Same with Target, right? Or same with Apple. It's just, it doesn't even have to say anything. It just has the Apple emblem and you know that it's Apple, right? Or Nike. So what to do instead is, again, don't waste your time and energy on that fancy logo where you're starting out, and instead create a simple text-based logo. And I'm just talking very simple, just choosing a font that's sort of representative of your personality, and create a graphic that is just your name, and maybe it's in a color, right? A text-based logo is simply your name typed out in that nice font that matches your personality and can be used as your logo until you can upgrade your brand as time goes on and more revenue comes in, and then you can focus on strategy and all that stuff. So if you look at some of the big personal brands out there, like Amy Porterfield or Jenna Kutcher or Brendan Burchard, their logos are pretty simple. They're just text. And I'm not saying they're just text. They're done in a way that is still strategic. They're using a font that sort of represents their personality. You wouldn't want, I wouldn't see Tony Robbins using a real frilly type of font for his name. It's a bold lettered font and it's got power in it. And those kinds of things that you want to think about when you are creating your text-based logo, right? And so they don't focus on that, and they focus on serving the heck out of their audiences, right? Because the logo isn't the only thing that represents your business. You've got your other things, your colors, your fonts, and your design and photography and your brand voice. And then you have the strategic side of the branding, which is your positioning, your messaging, your brand personality, all of those things, right? And the logo is just a small little piece that sort of is the emblem that might represent that. So in the beginning, a simple text-based logo is the way to go. And you can really DIY this very easily and very inexpensively, if not free. You can even do it in PowerPoint. Yes, I know my peers are probably looking at me going, PowerPoint. Yeah, I hate PowerPoint too, but it's just a tool. If you can use it to create a text-based logo, it doesn't matter what it's created with. You can use Keynote if you're on a Mac, or a free version of Canva. You can do that. And what you do, you just type your logo out in a font that's going to be sort of representative of the personality that you want to convey. So if you want strong, bold, trustworthy, you'd probably choose a strong, bold font. Or if you're sort of, if you're a yoga coach or something like that, you might want something a little bit more elegant and feminine, assuming you're female there. But again, you can use Canva or Keynote, type that logo out and just export that as a PNG file from the software. I'm sure there is a tutorial in each one of those softwares that you can do that with. It's not difficult. And that becomes your logo graphic file. And then you can use that on your website. You can use that in your social media graphics and things like that, right? So alternatively, you could hire a VA who is proficient at Canva or PowerPoint or Keynote and do it for you at the fraction of a cost to hire like a designer. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to replace what a designer can do for you, because, and I'm not trying to be self-serving here, but designers can add a tremendous amount of value when it comes to creating brand identity. But like I say, we're here to make decisions early on and get our stuff out there in a way that's going to be consistent at that level that we're at, rather than going from zero to Nike. So you got to think about this in stages. Get your foundational brand together, which is just a simple text-based logo, your colors, your fonts, and use those consistently throughout everything that you do. And just remember that branding isn't something that's one and done. It's an evolutionary process. And when you're starting out, simplicity is the best strategy. Like I say, you can get fancy later. So think about it like a marathon runner. If you are going to run a marathon, you just don't start off running, 26.2 miles one day, right? You work your way up. If you've ever run a marathon, you know that your training schedule is pretty rigid. Like you run a mile or two, then you take a break. Then you run 5 miles, then you take a break. Then you go back to running 2 miles, then you take a break. Then you run 7, etc., until over time you get to that 26.2 miles that you could run, and you build up that stamina. And it's kind of the same thing with your branding. You start very simple and basic in the beginning, and over time you build those things out. You make more money. You can invest more in certain aspects of your business, and that is the way. And branding is the same way. So mistake number 2 is not being consistent with your visual. So consistency is one of the most important things in branding. So when you're consistent with all of your visuals, your logo, your graphic design, your website, your PDFs that you put out, your sales pages, your social media graphics, all of that stuff, when you're consistent with your visuals, your audience will remember you and recognize those visuals and subconsciously associate them with you over time. Not instantly, right? I see ads in my feed all the time that I've never seen before. It might be somebody new who's just advertising, but over time, once I look at that ad, I'm retargeted and I'm seeing it over and over again. And then when I see these visuals, I instantly say, oh yeah, that's a guy that does this, right? Or whatever it is that person does. So remember, it doesn't happen overnight, and branding is a long game. It's that marathon, and your audience has to be exposed to your brand at a minimum 5 to 7 times before they even start to remember your brand and make those associations. It's kind of like that streak, right? And that streak of consistency is what earmarks your brand in their brain and associates them with you. And this happens really subconsciously. And again, when I say visuals, I'm talking about all the stuff that you put out into the world: your logo, your colors, your fonts, your web pages, social media graphics, PDFs, workbooks, the list goes on and on and on. If your visuals are not consistent, meaning you have different designs and layouts for all these different things, maybe you have the squirrel brain and you're like, oh, this is a cool template here. Oh, I like this over here. And they don't match. And if you're consistently, if you're consistently being inconsistent, you can cause a lot of confusion with your audience. And they're not going to consciously say, oh, that guy's stuff isn't consistent, so I'm not going to work with him. It just happens, right? So it's not like something they're aware of, right? So it can cause that confusion with your audience. So if you're consistently changing up the look and feel across everything, it just creates that feeling of chaos. And if say a link on social media sends you to a web page, and that web page has a link to download a PDF, or something like that, and they all look different, there's no cohesion. So they don't get that sort of benefit of that consistent branding, right? You can look unprofessional, and it will significantly increase the chances of them not working with you. So what to do instead? And again, this doesn't have to be complex or expensive to do. The three most fundamental things, and I preach this all the time, to make your visuals consistent is to always use the same colors, the same fonts, and that simple text-based logo we discussed earlier. And those are the things that will build that foundational brand that you can build off of over time. So you're starting with that foundation. It's like, the classic building metaphor. If you don't have a foundation, everything's going to crumble over time if you don't build that foundation. You can get fancy later with the designs and the bells and whistles on websites and animations and all that stuff. But if you're starting out, this is the important stuff you have to do. And you might get sick of it. You might get sick of looking at those same colors and your same fonts. And I always say, if you're getting sick of the branding that you have, that means you're doing it right because you're consistent with it. So I'm not going to get into the details of like picking colors and fonts here, but when you go to do that, just pick a color palette that feels right and matches your personality. I always start with the strategy side of your personality, because, color and fonts have personality and they can convey certain things about you and your business. Pick one or two of those most prominent personality traits that you want to sort of convey. Oranges are warm and sunshiny and loving, where greens are sort of healthy and vibrant, and blues sort of convey trust and things like that. So think about the type of mood and brand attribute that you want to convey. Pick a color, you build a color palette around that, and then you can be consistent with it over time, right? And you can even look to your closet. What kind of colors you wear. I tend to wear blues and blacks and grays, right? So you'll find a lot of that in my branding, because that just feels like it's me and it's authentic, right? And then I have some pinks and lighter shades of blue, just so for that vibrancy and fun and kind of sort of I'm an everyday kind of guy. I'm approachable and those kinds of things. So and I also do a Nail Your Brand Colors and Fonts workshop that if you go to my website, patricksesko.com, there's a link there. There's a waiting list right now because I only run that once in a while. I'll probably be running that soon. But if you want to get on the wait list, just go to patricksesko.com/workshop and you can check that out. But for the time being, pick a simple color palette, even if it's one color and some neutrals, blacks, whites, grays, and go with that for now if you're stuck. And then just choose that simple font that kind of represents that personality about you and your business, and then use them consistently throughout everything you do. It really matters, and it does make a difference. Again, it's not going to make that difference overnight, but it makes a difference in how your audience perceives you. So that's it for that number 2. So make sure you are consistent with your visuals. Just checking here the live feed. If you're here, drop a comment, say hi, or if you're catching a replay, just give me a hashtag replay. It kind of just helps with the interaction. It helps with how the video is shown. So I would appreciate that. But also say hi. I'm a real guy. I'll answer any questions and all that stuff. So just drop a comment and say what's up. If anybody's here. Nope. So then the mistake number 3 that I see a lot of new online entrepreneurs make is copying somebody else's branding, right? So it has been said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, in branding and design, that's not flattery. That's called infringement, right? And even if it's not infringement, why would you want to copy somebody else's brand anyway? That's theirs. I really cannot tell you how many times I've worked with clients who've been like, yes, I need to do this brochure, I need to do this annual report or website or logo or whatever. They would literally send me some links And I always say do research, look at your competition, look at other logos and designs that are out there for inspiration. But they'll send me somebody's page and say, yeah, I like this. Just swap out the logo, put my logo there and put my photo here. And that's it. Where that's, that's not cool. That's infringement. So, copying wasn't cool in school and it's not cool in branding. So, and frankly, copying somebody else's brand can actually do damage, not only to your brand, because then it can cause confusion, especially if the person for whom you're copying is in the same kind of industry and you have the same or similar audience. It could actually cause damage to them as well, because then you're diluting their brand. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be you don't want to be known as an a-hole, right? So it's okay to get inspiration, but copying flat out is not the way to go. I also can't tell you how many times where I've been, on Facebook, and I'm always targeted because I do a lot of research, not research, but I follow a lot of pages on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook, and I'll see ads. And so I'm in Amy Porterfield's community, and I'm part of one of her programs. And I'll see an ad that looks just like her stuff. And without thinking about it, I click on it. It's like, oh, what's Amy doing now? I'll click on that, and I get to the site, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not her stuff. This is somebody else's stuff. And so I'm like confused. Now, obviously, Amy is pretty well known in the industry, so she has her sort of legacy that she's built up over time. So it's not really damaging her brand, but what it's doing is people are sort of riding the coattails off of that and kind of tricked me in a way to click on their stuff because that brand looked like somebody else's brand. And so when I saw that, it instantly, literally instantly, made me not have that trust in them. It's like, well, that's not cool. Part of me says, well, maybe they just don't know better, and that might be the case, but it doesn't matter. It's that perception that what matters. So don't copy somebody else's brand. I felt duped. I clicked away. I probably would not end up working with that person, just because there's brand confusion there. So what to do instead of copying somebody else's brand? Like I said, it's okay to be inspired by other things. Artists do it all the time. And there's a famous saying that says, steal, great artists steal, or something like that, where, or some people would say, oh, well, there's nothing original anymore. And, there might be some truth to that because, everything is so saturated, but research your competition's brands, research other brands in your industry and other brands that aren't in your industry. Pinterest and Google, do all that, right? Look at other stuff, get ideas. That's fine. I do that. But copying is not fine. So what you could do is, by doing that, you gain insights into other things, like how color combinations might work. Oh, I like how this blue and orange work together, or I like the layout of this navigation or something like that, or I like the placement of this photo, right? You're not copying the exact design, but you're saying, I like how the hierarchy of this page works, or something like that, right? So how they organize their content, or even the way they treated their backgrounds. But the copy outright is unethical, and it's just plain kind of yucky. So again, use other sites, logos, and brands to look out for inspiration. Look at the different styles they use. Look at the mood of the color palette or the font combination and how it worked together. And all of those things can influence what you do in your own branding. Even if you just focus on the colors and fonts and a text-based logo, it can influence what you do in your branding. But again, don't copy. And again, Pinterest is a great tool for that brand design research. You can do search terms for brand design inspiration or brand identity, or you can even do things like, insert certain adjective calming color palette, right? And there's millions of them out there. You can also find color inspiration in tools like coolors.co. That's coolors.co. That can help you with some color palettes and things like that. And you'll get a plethora of inspiration on any of those things, and just use that to make your own decision. Just remember, it's not rocket science. You're not creating the Mona Lisa. This is graphic design isn't just about aesthetics. It's about how it works. It's about how the user experiences your pages, your business, all that stuff. And remember, it's not permanent, right? If you do it and it doesn't not working out for you, or you want to evolve it over time, you can change it. That's the beauty of it. And even nowadays, so, back in the day, if it would cost a lot of money to change up a brand because everything was printed. You had annual reports that cost, either hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. So if you changed up your brand, you'd have to print all this stuff. Now it's just a matter of changing up most things that are digital, whether they're PDFs or what have you. So, if you're making these mistakes, don't feel bad. My intention isn't to like throw shade to you, but it is to just sort of bring awareness, bring it to light that these are some simple things that you can do to basically not make these mistakes and just propel your brand forward. And just remember, and I stress this, and I even go through the same sort of mindset. It's like, man, it's taking so long. It's like months, years. It's going to take months, maybe years. You have to just be consistent, and you have to do those things that I mentioned before, because as you start to gain traction in your business, then you can invest into a brand strategist or a brand designer like myself to create something that's even going to take you to that. I know it's a cliche, next level, but what better term is there than next level, right? So don't feel bad if you're making these mistakes. It's a learning experience. But now that you can correct these mistakes pretty easily and move your business forward. So that's it for today. I appreciate you guys being here. Again, if you're catching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. And if you want to grab that brand roadmap, there's the link right there below me. That's patricksesko.com/brand roadmap. And that'll help you sort of audit your brand as you are starting to build it. And it will shine light on the gaps, on things that might need work. So grab that, because it is an awesome tool, if I do say so myself. That's a little pat on the back. And that's it for this week. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week. Talk soon. Later.